Hi everybody. A lot of people said they had trouble with number 12, so I wanted to make a video to walk you through some ways you might think about it. First I want to walk through a way that I think might have been a common way to think about it, but ends up being kind of messy. Then I'll show you two cleaner ways to think about it. First, let's think just in terms of this particular concrete case, and we can generalize it afterwards. In general, this is a great way to come up with algorithms, is you imagine how would you create a specific instance, and then once you have the steps for creating a specific instance, you can try to generalize them. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna write all of this as comments in sort of pseudocode. So I want to loop through every row because I'm gonna want to display each row one at a time. And it looks like there's the same kind of pattern that happens. I display some initial number of dots, then a star, then a mid number of dots, then a star, and then the same number of dots at the end is the same number as the initial. So I might think about making an initial dots variable, so number initial starts out at 0, and I might have the num for the middle dots start out at 5. And then I would do something like display num initial dots, then I'd display a star. Then I'd display num mid dots, then I'd display a star. Then I'd display num initial dots, then and then I'm at the end of the line, so then I would want to move to the next line and change the numbers so that they'll be all set up for the next loop. So I'd do a print line, and then let's see, the num initial dots goes up by 1 every time, and it looks like the middle dots goes down by 2 every time. So I could have something like num mid minus equals 2. Okay, so you could do something like this. You're going to notice that this is going to be a little bit awkward though. For one thing, my pattern always has us display the star, and that works right up until this middle line where there's only 1 star, but my way of breaking this problem down is still going to display 2 stars. So I'd have to have some way with dealing with that, which seems a little awkward. Another problem, I guess I could stop it before the middle, so instead of looping through every row, I could loop right up until right before half the number of rows. And then I'd have to have a special set of code to draw just the middle line, and then I could reproduce the bottom as being symmetric to the top. This is feeling like it's getting kind of long with a lot of special cases and kind of complicated though. So let's abandon this approach. And let's think of another one. So another one that occurs to me is, as I draw every single line, let's visit every single column in the row, and at each position let's ask, should we be drawing a star or should we be drawing a dot? A great way to do this is just to create some variables to keep track of what's the location of your first and second star supposed to be. This one let's do as regular code. So I'm going to start the row at 0, and I'm going to make the row be less than, let's see, there's 6 rows there, okay, so 7. Okay, so this should loop 7 times for my 7 rows. Now I'm going to loop my columns from 0 to 7 again. This nested for loop, the idea is for every single value that the row could take on, I'm going to do this loop over and over and over again. So when row equals 0, I'm going to do this loop 7 times when row equals 0. And that will visit every single column in the 0th row. Then we're back on the outside loop. Row will increment, so row will be equal to 1. And I'm going to do this loop 7 times when row equals 1. And then 7 times when row equals 2, and so forth. So I think what I want to do is something like this. I'm going to create a variable called star1 location. Star1 starts in column 0. And I'll make a star2 location. Star2 starts in column 6. Alright, so now I can say this. I can say if the column number equals star 1's location, or if the column number equals star 2's location. In either case, I want to print a star. Otherwise, I want to print a dot. I actually don't like this way of indenting. I just did Control-Shift-F, which auto-indents. This looks like a nicer way to indent to me. Alright, I'm doing print rather than print line because here I'm looping through the columns and I don't actually... Whoa, it screwed up my whole business. Because I'm actually doing print lines... because I'm looping through all the columns, so I don't actually want it to go to the next line in the display until I'm completely finished visiting every column. Only at the end of the columns, when I'm going to the next row, do I want to print line. So that happens after this entire loop is done. Here below the for loop, I'll say system.out.println, and that'll go to the next row. Otherwise, I'm just going through the columns and deciding should I display star or should I display dot. Okay, well, I need to do one more thing. After I've looped through my first row, and it's displayed a star in columns 0 and 6, I have to change the locations of my star for the next column. So I'll say star 1 location plus plus and star 2 location minus minus. And so star 1 location will go from 0 to 1, star 2 location will go from 6 to 5. And if I've thought about this correctly and all has gone well, each new row, the star's locations should change. It deals with this middle row completely nicely because my if statement, because I'm only visiting every column once, and it will only display a star if either star location is in that column. So in the case of the middle row here, the star locations will both be the same number, but I'm still only visiting that column number once. So it doesn't matter that both variables are going to be true in this if statement. It's still only going to display the star once, which is exactly what I want there. Let's run it and make sure it works. Ah, there we are. So it's displayed a nice sort of a star crisscross pattern. I guess let's think about the other way of looking at it, and then let's generalize. No, let's generalize first. So if I'm going to generalize, I guess I'll create a scanner for system.in, and I'm going to print enter a number, and then I'll call that number n. Okay. So remember, I said that I wanted the size of the square here to be 2n plus 1. So 2 times whatever they typed in plus 1. So I'm going to create an int called size, which would be 2 times n plus 1. Star 1's location can always start at 0. That's great. Star 2's location needs to be in the last column, however. So if there are 2n plus 1 columns here, but I'm starting counting at 0, it must be that the last column is really going to be 2n. Let's stop and think about that for a second. So in this example, the n that I would, or let's number them starting at 1. So there's 7 columns here. So I'd get 7 columns if I typed in 3, because 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7. Alright, so imagining my example, n is 3. That makes the size equal to 7. But I wanted my star 2 location to be 6. That's very clearly 1 less than the size. And the reason why is because I started numbering my columns at 0. I suppose you don't have to start your columns numbered at 0. That's a convention that's helpful in a lot of different circumstances, particularly when using the mod operator. So I think it's a good habit to get used to. So in general, I guess I can make this size minus 1. What I just did there, verifying that my generalization works for a particular case as I'm programming, that's a great practice just to make sure that you're not going to program something crazy. So I've got my star 1 location in the right place. I've got my star 2 location in the right place. Rows are going to loop size number of times. And as long as I'm starting at 0 and row is smaller than size, it's going to loop exactly size times, because I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is less than size, but then when it tries to loop again, 7 is equal to size, so this statement will be false and it won't continue to loop. So same thing here, I'm going to have the columns go from 0, and the column needs to be less than size in order to continue. And now everything else looks like it's just the same, so let's run it. Enter a number 3. Okay, so that's produced the same thing. Let me drag this up. But now I should be able to do 5. Great, and it prints a much larger one. I could do 2, and it's printed a smaller one. Great, so that seems to be working. Okay, what if you didn't want to do it with 2 extra variables to keep track of where are these stars? You could do it by being sort of mathematically clever enough. So I'm going to eliminate the star variables. So you can calculate what is star location 1 and what is star location 2 just based on the row number. So I guess let's do the rows here also. So here I've written down the rows and I've written down the columns. All right, well I see for star 1's location, whenever the row number equals the column number, that's where star should happen. So I could say if column equals the row number, we know that that's a place where there should be a star. Well, what about these ones? Here I've got 6 and 0, 5 and 1, 4 and 2. Remember that the size of my grid here is 7. So it seems like if I have the size minus 1, that's 6, and then I subtract the row number, that will give me the column number of the second star. So if I have 6 minus 0 for the first row, if I have 6 minus 1, that gives me 5 for the next row. 6 minus 2, that gives me 4 for the next row. But remember, this 6 is actually size minus 1. So here I'll say if column equals size minus 1 minus the row number. So now we've just found a way of redescribing, based on the row number, what should those location 1 and location 2 actually be. That's kind of nice because it lets us get rid of all these extra variables. And now when we run it, it gives us the same kind of output pattern. If you'd like to try out these ideas on 2 more problems, here are 2 ones that I suggest to you. Have the user enter a number n, and then display a checkerboard of size 2n plus 1, as you see right here. I think that one is maybe a little bit easier, maybe not. A second one that seems like a good challenge is have the user enter a number n and create a diamond shaped like this of size 2n plus 1. Good luck!